Friends, are you familiar with the concept of I am woman, woman, hear me roar? It's a no one, and it's just means it's usually used as a put down on women. But sometimes we do things that are just okay. The issue of women in ministry is hot and heavy out there today because Dr. Preston Sprinkle wrote a book and he came off saying, hey, you know what? It's true. Women are not hindered to be anything they want to be in the church. They have all the power and all the God given rights to do whatever God calls them to do. Okay? That is not a problem. I have a review of his book. I thought it was fantastic. I've read a few other books regarding women in ministry in William Payne, and there was a book where there's a few contributors in it. I watched a ton of videos with scholars. One of my favorite, the very first video I watched was Carmen Joy Imes and Disciple Dojo. He has both of them have a YouTube channel, and it's about 2 hour video where they go through scripture. And the first thing you learn is obviously that you do not make theology from one single or three passages of what is it, 2,000 pages in the Bible or something like that. Anyways, when I watched that video, I was like, oh, I think I don't know what I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. So I continue studying and researching and doing all of that. When I first started in my biblical studies, I was I was unaware of all the nuances of the Bible. And I thought, I am naive, I'll admit that I thought that people had already figured out everything in the Bible. I mean, we've had these books for almost what, 4,000 years maybe? Or at least 2,000 if you, depending on how you read the book, the timeline. So I'm thinking we got to figure out, right? Well, it turns out we don't because we're humans and we have our own personal ideas and interests that we bring into the Bible. So, after searching a lot, I realized that the truth is not always the aim of those people that write books and are scholars regarding the Bible. So I'm like, I just want to find out the truth. I want to know the true Jesus. I want to know the true God without anyone telling me who I'm supposed to be, who I'm supposed to believe, what am I supposed to believe regarding God, Jesus. I wanted the Bible to tell me how I'm supposed to view them. Then there is no nuance also to that because you have historical and social economic context to the Bible. All that to say, uh, I've done a lot of research. I read a lot of books regarding women in ministry, and I'm pretty contented in the fact that I agree with Mr. Sprinkle or Dr. Sprinkle that yep, women are allowed to do everything. One of the books that I read was The Making of the Biblical Woman by Beth Barr. It was good. Her angle was, well, she went through all some of the passages. She went through the historical things, the if I'm remembering correctly, the idea that in history women have always been part of the church, church building, church community, church everything else, and they have done teaching, preaching, and all the things. Okay, so now her book starts with some church hurt that she and her husband experienced and all of that. And it's up to you to decide whether that adds credibility to her book, adds credibility to her point, or detracts from it. I I think that God brings us to our conclusions and our path in a lot of different ways. And if she had never been pushed out of it, out of the church, she probably never would have written the book. She probably wouldn't have, God puts us in a path, and sometimes the path is a little bumpy. Okay, so Preston Sprinkle writes his book. Dr. Mrs. Barr, professor, she might have a PhD. I don't remember. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but anyways, they both write their books. The making of a biblical womanhood is been around for a while. I think at least 3 years, and Dr. Sprinkle just came out in March. Okay, both books are really good on their own terms. All right. Her book was readable, understandable, and uh relatable in a way, looking at it from a woman's perspective and all of that. Dr. Sprinkle has a whole other way of looking at it. He went through the biblical proof. He took you on a ride, so to speak, of the Bible and what God thinks of women, what Jesus thinks of women, and all of that. His points are solid as far as I can tell. Obviously, I am not the top majority expert, but many people out there, scholars and all of that, think that he was really good, that the book is very solid. And I'm like, yeah, I agree. Okay. These two books can coexist just fine in the universe, right? Well, you'd be wrong about that. You would think that for all women in this little side of the universe would be happy that yet one more book proves what we already know, that God is just fine with all of us being in ministry of any kind in the church. Well, you'd be wrong about that, because sometimes women don't know when to just be happy. Doctor, I saw a little snippet, okay, from and Sheila. Uh, she does a whole lot of her podcast is the Marriage Podcast or something like that, and she wrote a little what is it, Substack, on Miss Barr Substack about how she did not agree, that she endorsed the book, but she had issues. Okay, so the issue is, uh the issue is, Dr. Sprinkle says in the beginning, in the introduction of his book, saying, "I don't have any strings attached to this. I'm just going to write the book, do the research, try to understand the subject, and wherever I land, whether complementarian or egalitarian, it matters not. I'm not going to lose any friends. I am not going to lose any income, and I am not going to lose any influence anywhere. And I'm to me as a person that is really interested in the truth, that is a really good point, a starting point. I want my person, or the person writing the book, to have zero or as little pull from any side when they're writing a book as important as the women in ministry issue. So that would be ideal, you would think. Except Miss Bauer took exception to that. She said, there's a whole, I'm not going to read this Substack, but she wrote a whole thing about how, people are so happy that you did it, but why women have been doing this for a while, yada yada yada, and how dare you, and all of that. And I read a little bit of it. I wasn't even going to comment on that. I just kind of roll my eyes at it, and I was like, okay, whatever. Until she and Dr. Sprinkle did an interview in this particular channel called WTC Theology. And they were interviewed by the gentleman that runs this channel. It's a small channel, but uh, they put in some of my favorite theologians there. So Tim Mackey is there and all that. So all that to say, it showed up on my feed as something showed up, and I'm like, okay, let me listen to the interview. And it was not good for women folk. Okay, let me go ahead and I'm gonna play you just a couple of the shorts that they have posted at it, especially the last one. That this last short I watched this afternoon was the one that prompted me to do this video. Okay, I'm gonna share the YouTube short. And actually, I'm gonna let you. I'm gonna let it play through so that you can hear the issue here.
If you change your mind on this issue, I think you have a responsibility to realize that you have contributed to a system that has kept women out from doing what God called them to do and have created a system that made them feel essentially that they were less human, that they were less than men. And
Okay, let me tell you something about all of this. Okay, it is really arrogant to say that one single person, they literally did the thing that you wanted them to do, that I would want them to do the research, do the studying, and then put it out there for everybody to know, regardless of which side you landed on. Okay, had he landed on the side of the complementarians, like he was before, I would have said, well, he's wrong, because I am certain of my own interpretations and I don't come to them lightly. Okay, but I'm not mad at him because he was part of something that he grew up in, that he went to school with. I was unaware that Dr. Sprinkle was part of the John MacArthur School of Divination. But all I'm saying is, why do we have to berate someone that literally did the thing that we want them to do? Do the research and give you the best their best opinion regarding that. And here's the other thing, he landed on egalitarian anyways. So all that to say, friends, this is childish behavior. She if you pick out her book is really good and you should read it. But take it with a grain of salt because she has a lot of church hurt behind her. Her husband lost her job. Her, there has been issues. She lost. Uh, she was teaching, I think, in the church, if I remember right. It's been a minute since I read the book. She had all these things that she was involved with in the church that they lost because she started to question why women uh, couldn't teach and preach. And I will tell you, there's something to do what you said. That they make you feel like you're less than human or they're less than men. Now, when I went to church with my husband, I was wholly unaware of this issue. I was never ever thought that there wasn't anything I couldn't do. No one could hinder me to do anything in life. All right. If I wanted to go to school, I went to school. If I wanted to work, I worked. If I wanted to go to the church, my husband came with me and we went together and we did the rounds to all the churches in the neighborhood. And I realized, hey, this is not for me. I don't belong to that. Whatever those clubs that they are, we don't belong to them. Okay. And let me, I'm going to get out of the screen and I'm gonna make my final point.
It's not in
I'm
the
gonna,
cards.
I know. I keep having issues. This is the last time. If you stop, I'm not doing it. Anyway, the problem with church hurt, friends, is that This is gonna sound horrible. I mean it the right way. From what I can see from Mike Winger's videos, even her own story, and all the stuff, okay? The people that get hurt the most when it comes to church hurt are church hurt, I think, yes, is the ones that want to be cooking the pot. They want to be in the room when it happens, okay? They want to be the ones that make the decisions to where the money goes, who what is taught in the kids classes, what songs are sung in the thing. They want to be elders, they want to be deacons, they want to do all the things in the church. They have aspirations to be in leadership in the church, or any church, okay, any church, lowercase c. They want to be part of all of that. They want to be part of the soup making recipe. And you know what? When you do that, you end up in a room with a bunch of people that want to make the decisions as well, and they have the same ego problems. Tell you what, I am grateful to my husband, because his first thing when we went to churches was like, I'm not interested in being a deacon. I am not interested in being an elder. I'm not interested in doing anything in the church. I just want to go in, give my tithe, and pray, and have a sermon, and sing some songs, and move on. I had a slightly different mindset. I wanted to help. Okay. And then we started going to churches.
But they're not helping
But
anyone.
they're not really helping anybody, okay? They're not really. They helping. That's a whole other subject we could go down the road. But they're not really helping anybody. They're only helping themselves in the churches. And here's the other thing.
Hmm.
So the whole idea was like, yeah, we're not gonna do any of that. I was like, okay. And you know what? That was helpful. I'm glad he did that, because that gave me the power to just sit back and observe. And like I said, I grew up, I grew up knowing my own limitation, knowing that all I had to do was that there was nothing I couldn't do. Okay, that I set my mind to. If I wanted to go to school, I did that, work, all that, right? So when we walk into a church and someone tell me to say, ask women, "Oh, we need someone to sweep the church," and all these other things, I'm like, I already do sweeping in my house. I already do cooking in my house. I already do dishes in my house. I already did all of that. I'm not doing any of that, and that does not make me proud. It just makes me a smart woman that doesn't want to be used, because there's nothing you guys have in your churches that we want.
You ever
Okay.
notice they didn't ask no fellers to do no sweeping?
That's right. No men were doing the sweeping. No men doing the cleaning. Oh, they were. Oh my gosh. There was this one church where okay, one of the pastors, let me tell you the story real quick and I'll end with that. One of the pastors was, I think they were really trying to groom my husband, because they were short of deacons and elders. And
Yeah,
so
gave me the keys to the church.
we have some property and all of that. We're not rich by any stretch of the imagination, but we live. It's the whole thing. So I was really studying and trying to learn, and books are, especially anything church related books, are really expensive when you get into the real serious scholarship stuff. And so the past, after having a few classes with him, he gave us a key to the door so that I could go in to the library and study and grab some books, borrow some books and whatever, and bring them
Yep.
back, whatever. So we have the key. We used it a couple times, went in, I looked for some books, studied some books, returned the books, all of that. There is this one hot, steamy summer day, and it is 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning, and it is already 100 degrees outside. For some reason, the pastors were not opening the door, the elders were not opening the doors, and all of that. So my husband says, "Hey, I have a key. Let me go open the door so the little old lady standing in the front don't cook to death because they're looking kind of wilty. So he goes over, opens the door, and all of that. And you should have heard it. I've been in this church for 35 years and I never got a key. And it was everybody. And we keep getting looks and everything else. And I looked at my husband, you're not doing that again. I'm not, that is silly. That is just plain silliness. This is the kind of silliness that happens in churches. Okay? Let me tell you, 2 days next Sunday we're again, and you know who else is late again? The pastor. And you know how hot it is? It's even hotter than last time. And my husband says, I'm gonna go open the door. I say, you will do no such a thing. We're gonna sit here and let them cook because I don't wanna hear about it again. Okay? That is what's happening in the churches. People fighting for a spot in the spotlight. Okay, they're I'm gonna open the door, and I mean literally that is one of the deacon's jobs, to stand there and open the door in a suit in 120-degree weather. Okay, that's the kind of childishness that we have in the churches. Why would you want to be part of that? Okay, why would you want to be part of that? Anyways, the problem with Miss Barr is that she does have church hurt. And yes, she should have known better because she had been part of that forever. And if you're using the house of God, if you're using churches to further your own personal interest, you're going to get bit. You're going to be disappointed. I tell you what, Jesus, whatever you want to say or whatever, Jesus was a Jewish rabbi. Okay, one of the things that the Jewish rabbis of the time were, they were very proud of the fact that they could work, that they had jobs, because the rest of their time they could spend it studying scripture, getting to know God one to one. You need to have a job. You need to do other things that serve the world, that serve the community. And being able to study in your free time and do all the things that you need to do should be a privilege and an honor, not a right that you get to have. And that is the problem with all this church hurt going on. Okay? You think it's your right to have this, and it's not. It's no one's right. Anyways, friends, Jesus said it himself, I think, in a way. If they're not against us, they're with us. Okay? Someone else will write another book, and here's the hypocrisy of all of this. There's a lot of men out there that have written books about women in ministry, and they all came out egalitarian. I didn't hear her complaining about them. Okay? I didn't hear her say anything about them. It's just because maybe Mr. Sprinkle pushed a button of some sort. At any rate, look, the Bible, it's a fantastic book.
Animals.
You can get a ton of stuff. You can get really close to God by just reading it. Just reading it. But God will give you the appetite for it, and He will guide you. I promise you. Just be curious about it and don't be afraid of asking any questions. And that's it. There's a lot of politics in all of these churches and all of these systems and all of this that is, it's not important to what you're doing. Okay, there's a lot of scholarship out there, and it is all available to you at the click of a button. Or if you have the budget, you can buy all the books. I mean, I'm not even going to talk about how many books I got and how many my husband doesn't know I bought, and so there you go. At any rate, look, if you choose to go to church, um, don't worry about it. Don't try to be the the cherry on top and be all that and be the teacher and preacher and all of that. Be happy to be part of God and do your own study, and you will get closer to God. You'll see. It happened to me. You know, it happened to my husband 20 years ago. Anyways, God bless, and just relax, ladies. It's okay if the boys can play too. Bye bye.